So hi, welcome. I'm Blaze and I'm here with some long-time friends and some new friends. I'll just use the plural for both. I am going to share with you some of the elements of the process that I teach. Again, I call my work the process. We'll get into what that means. There are three outcomes that I would like for people. One is I'd like us to rest into a true sense of self, to have an awakened identification or sense of what is real and what is true about ourself in the big S version. This is what awakening is. I want this realization to impact the relationships we have, our ability to connect with others, our ability to express and feel what's happening for us and to receive what's happening for others. And I would like all of this realization and connection to actually affect what we create in our lives, what is manifest as our lives in the world, because all three of these are important. I think for me, it's not enough to know the truth. It's also important that that affects all the aspects of our life. And we can turn that around and say, if I really want to know the truth about life, I'm going to have to participate as a human being. And so all of these three things are what the process is all about. And there's a series of steps. We'll walk through them in various kinds of meditation and with inviting your participation. But we're going to focus on energy and movement. And we'll talk more about what that is. I'll spend a lot of our time today looking at what I mean by energy and movement. And I think in my email, I said, movement is good, energy is good. It always moves in the right direction. How do I know this? And how do I move more in the right direction? Those are the basic questions that I seek to answer. So before we started, we were talking about meditation and how do I detach from thoughts? How do I get peace in the complexity of my past and all that arises and all that I remember and all that I feel? And the process has what we're going to do today, and the process that I teach is a very simple way to do that. And we're going to look at that together to begin with. And then we'll move on from there. So I'm going to start with my eyes closed. I'm going to walk us through a meditation, and then I want to hear what part of this makes sense. Okay. So I'm going to close my eyes, and truthfully, we're kind of skipping a step, but when I close my eyes, I forget more about you. I become less focused on the world around my body, the world on my screen. I'm processing less information. And what remains is that I can hear. I have relationship with my thoughts. I'm witnessing my thoughts. And I feel my body. And we're going to move through all of these three levels of our experience, and we're going to learn to relax. That's my other word instead of detach. My healthy trade is I'm offering relax instead of detach. So we're going to learn how to relax. And the first thing we have to do is we're going to single out our hearing. We just take a moment to notice that we can focus on our hearing. For me, I have children upstairs and I just see if I can hear what they're doing. Of course, you hear my voice and all the other things that are happening in your world. And right now we are emphasizing together the stuff that we hear. I just heard a creak in my floor upstairs. What is that? My focus shifts. I become concentrated on what's happening over there. But that can be relaxed. We can learn how to relax our focus. And the way that we're going to do that is just by noticing the fact that the reason that we can hear is because there's awareness. If you're having an auditory experience, you must be aware. And I just invite us to become curious about if my voice sounds like my voice, or the creak in my floorboard sounds like a creak. What does awareness sound like? Is awareness making a sound? The way I would describe it is that awareness is like an empty space, an empty awake space. Awareness is what is actually hearing the sounds. Awareness in and of itself is not making a sound. So when I shift to the experience of being aware, when I focus on awareness, it's more like I'm aware of the absence of sound, sort of open, passive, empty space that's listening and awake. Again, if you've considered this before, maybe this is obvious. If you haven't considered this before, it might not be obvious. So we'll look together at it more closely. As I notice that awareness isn't making a sound, as it's just a sort of passive, open, awake space, I can realize that it's not resisting any of the sounds that it hears. Awareness can't stop any of the sounds from happening. My voice, which you're hearing right now, is just passing through your awareness. And awareness doesn't need to know what I'm going to say. It won't stop what I'm going to say, because it can't. You could call this pure acceptance. Awareness just accepts whatever it hears. And by focusing on awareness, as we are going to keep practicing, we're learning to relax about what we hear. We're learning to relax about all the things that we experience. And before we started recording, one of us here was sharing about a stream of thoughts that we just can't stop or get away from. There's just a constant stream of thoughts in this moment of intensity. So let's look at our experience of thinking. So I just noticed, what thoughts am I having now? And we're going to do the same thing, no matter what our thoughts are, whether there's many of them or just a few. The reason that we can know about thoughts at all, the reason that we can experience them, is because there's awareness. And I just shift my focus from my thoughts to the experience of being aware. And awareness is not a thought. For me, awareness is the space, the awake space that is observing thoughts, the awake space which thoughts are passing through. The reason I know I'm having a thought is because it's passing, moving through my awareness. And so by shifting my focus towards the experience of being aware, there is this awake space that's not moving. Awareness doesn't need to know what you're thinking. It doesn't need to stop thoughts. Doesn't have an opinion on them. It's not reactive towards them. It's an empty space. It has no stake in what your thoughts are. If there are a lot of thoughts, awareness is an empty space. If there are very few thoughts, awareness is an empty space. It's consistent, open, spacious. And we can learn to relax into the experience of being aware. We can let go of our thoughts and relax into this simple experience of being aware. Of course, the thoughts will keep moving, and that's where we're going today. We're going to look at movement, but we do it one more time. I feel my body, and my body has many things: a physical object, which has emotion, can also feel like a field of energy. We'll get into all of this, but just however my body feels now, sitting in my chair, breathing, having emotions. The reason that I can feel my body is because there's awareness. I wouldn't know that I had a body at all if there wasn't for awareness. So again, I just shift my focus. If my body feels like a body, what does awareness feel like? And there's so many things that we can point to. There's so many things that we can explore, and most of these are best done when we dialogue or start to share. But the first thing I would start with is that I can find that my body my body exists in a place, and it kind of has a boundary, and I can see what is not my body. There's a lamp. My lamp is not the same as my body. But I only have one awareness. And I can't find a place where my awareness ends. It doesn't have a really clear boundary. It just feels like an open space, an open, awake space that doesn't have a clear endpoint. And this is something, again, that I can relax into. I let go of my focus on my body, my concentration on my body. I relax into the experience of being aware. Awareness is so much bigger than my body that I actually have to relax to sink into it, to be aware. I have to let go of my body to be aware. So this is the sort of first step, and we'll move on, but we just start by, I asked the two of you that are here, how does this all sound and feel? Does it make sense? Where does it take you? What are you curious about? Just jump on in whenever you're ready.
And just I like the space and calmness that brought to me, connecting with the awareness, and just similar to when you're meditating and you're seeing the thoughts come. It's like at a different, I don't know, it was very calming to be aware of the awareness.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
So if I asked you about one of your friends or your children, you could describe them to me, and then I would know them through you. Can you introduce me to awareness? What qualities does your awareness have? What is awareness like?
I see it as space and seeing, but not judging. I guess just, I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Those are great. It's hard to explain as a kind of explanation. I really get a sense of it. It's not like other things that you would describe, but a space that's not judging, just sees things as they are. Now, here's the trick. I said, if this was your friend, but you are the one that is aware. So we could also be saying that these are qualities of you, couldn't we?
True. Yes.
So part of what we do is to utilize these qualities. These are really useful qualities in being ourselves. They are part of the truth of reality. They're part of consciousness. They're very important to understanding what is real and true, but they're also useful when we apply them to our thoughts, our feelings, our life circumstances, because now I don't need necessarily to have my body or my mind or any other part of the me that I'm used to, I don't have to have it like things or accept things. I don't have to have it be calm, because I have this aspect of myself, this awareness, which always does that, which I can always bring in. I can unconditionally learn to be at peace, to be at rest, to be relaxed. And I take the pressure off of my body of doing the thing of being in a different way that I am.
Mm.
Because awareness is not going to ask my body ever to be different than I am. That makes sense to you?
Yes.
And it's not a mindset, it's not an attitude, it's not a thing that we strive toward. It's a facet of consciousness or of ourselves, which we just become aware of. As soon as we are aware of it, the work of it is done. It's already doing the thing that we want it to do. And so part of what we do is we learn how to relax into those qualities and then apply them.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Laura, do you want to add anything just about where we've gone so far?
That it feels lovely, and the extra room, as soon as there's that noticing the spaciousness, it's like room to breathe, it's elbow room, and there's room to hold everything without tightness.
Beautiful. There's enough space. Again, we get that implicitly. I just would ask you, how much space is there in awareness?
Infinite.
Right. Well, then that means there's enough space for enough time and space for whatever it is that I'm challenged by. I can start to feel that. I can start to have that kind of relationship with myself. Even when it doesn't feel emotionally or in my body like I have enough time and space, I get that from beyond my body, from this witness in my body. And we just check in. Again, you said there's room to breathe. How does your body and mind respond when you recognize awareness? What does your body do in the presence of this non-judgmental, timeless, boundless space?
I don't know. I was feeling like trust and openness. I don't know. It felt quite safe.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Mm.
So there are all these people in the world that may or may not understand you. They may or may not stick with you or treat you well, but awareness, implicitly, we trust. It is something that we can trust. And in this world, that's really valuable. That's really, really valuable. It's actually the foundation through which we can take on the world of relationships where that's not always true, and actually be able to maintain our sort of best interest. That's how we don't get lost in the world of relating. If we have this relationship with ourselves that is so powerful and affirming. So as we sit here and just notice that there's awareness, we're going to shift our focus. So I would say that awareness is not moving. It's not really moving. It's not really changing. It's like a empty space. Awareness doesn't really go on a journey. It doesn't really learn things. It doesn't really transform. All of that, all of those things, the journey, the transformation, the healing, the growing, the having a change in our experience, all of that really comes from what we are aware of. And we want that to move. If we didn't want that to move, we wouldn't be here. We'd be happy to be sitting still. But none of us are designed in body and mind to sit still. That's awareness's job. If our job as bodies was to not move, we wouldn't have bodies. We would just be awareness. But I'm talking, I get hungry, I've got kids to feed, I've got desires and dreams and pains, I remember things from the past. All of that is about movement. And the question that I hope to solve today is, how do we get that to move as beneficially as possible? How do we get that to move in the direction that we want it to go? And so the first part of this is really important. Awareness is not moving. Awareness is not trying to control this movement. It's not trying to improve it. It doesn't get scared that things go in the wrong direction. It just stays open. I will do a little experiment together. I close my eyes. I don't try to have any particular thought, feeling, sensation, memory, image. I don't try to hear or see anything in particular. My job is just to be like awareness, to see what is happening. I do my best just to sort of sit still. And what I notice is everything keeps moving on its own. I don't have to ask my thoughts to think. I don't have to ask my feelings to feel, my sensations to change. This movement of sensation, of experience, I should say, is effortless. It's not something that you're doing, it's something that you are observing, you're witnessing. And when we're sitting here trying not to do anything, that can be pretty obvious. That can start to be more obvious. This moment is really happening on its own. And it's moving. There is a flow of experience, of consistent change, and we can start to feel that. As we relax into awareness, we can start to feel that there is a movement of flow. And I believe it's actually this flow that wants to take us where we're going. The direction of this flow is our highest potential. And there are some meditative or spiritual traditions where what you do is you just watch this flow happen and you learn to relax into it and trust it. And it just takes you to the endpoint, to whatever state of consciousness that it is, whatever you would call that. It just keeps going and going, and it takes you where you want to go. And your job is just not to resist it. The good news is awareness is not trying to resist it. So as we sit here, everything keeps moving. Kind of happens on its own. So before I go on anymore, I just would like to check in. Does it feel like there is an effortless flow of experience which passes through your awareness? Or does it feel different than that?
I can feel that, or the awareness of everything still in motion, the flow of it.
Wonderful. And we just notice it's very useful just to feel this in our body. Again, and when I talk about movement in your body, what we're not talking about, you're not getting up and going somewhere. This is a different kind of movement. My question is, what does it feel like is moving? How would you describe the feeling of movement?
Like a flow.
A flow, and yes, that's a wonderful word. I think I use it all the time. And just to invite your curiosity deeper, a flow of what? What does it feel like it's flowing?
Well, just when you said when getting to where you have to be, it's kind of, I guess, not a journey or a thought that's leading to, okay, where is this going? I guess a journey.
Yeah, wonderful. This is absolutely a journey. But I would say, again, as you say, flow, I would just suggest that we could also describe this flow as energy. It feels like energy. That's often a word that can resonate. Again, this mouse isn't flying through the air. It's not an object. It's my experience feels fluid. Just the experience of being conscious feels fluid. It's not an object that's moving. It's more like energy. And we can sort of realize that consciousness or experience feels like, one way to describe it is energy passing through awareness. So as a metaphor, you could think about the screen that you're looking at, and you could talk about the screen that you're looking at in two ways. One, you could say, Blaze is talking and he's moving, and then there's a white wall behind him. Or you could shift your focus and say, I'm looking at a screen, and the screen just has these dots, and through some magic, which I don't understand, light changes and there's a movement of the images. But those are two ways of describing the same experience. So I'm going to give you two descriptions of consciousness. One is that I'm Blaze, I'm here, I walk through the world. If I go get a sandwich or if I talk to you, I'm doing this thing. There's me and I'm doing this. I shift my focus. Another way of describing this experience is awareness is witnessing energy pass through it. That awareness is not moving and everything just keeps passing through it. And so this room that I would move through is Blaze, or the computer that I'm looking at, all of this is inside my awareness. When wind moves through the trees or the sun rises, I'm just witnessing this flow of energy through my awareness. And as we start to relax into our body, we get the first sense that it can feel like this in our body. It may not look like this, and this may not be our dominant experience, but we sort of get a taste of this kind of reality, this kind of perception. It's really just a shift in focus. That's all it is. And so we sit here and we relax into this focus. We don't do anything, and everything happens on its own. Awareness doesn't stop anything. And it just keeps moving. It has a life of its own. And again, I just pause to see how does this feel? Does it feel true? Does it make sense? Are there elements that you're curious about or that you notice? I just invite you to share if you have a question or comment.
Oh, it feels true. And just, I guess, just being more aware of it as energy, you know, to be more conscious of movement as energy rather than just things moving.
And challenging question that I'm hoping to answer through this experience is, how are we going to do that? How are we going to notice it more?
Feeling it, feeling the energy and becoming aware of my own, you know, even just thinking about the energy, I was thinking, okay, well, I want to be introducing that into my meditation and awareness more and thinking about energy. So when I'm becoming aware of my own then I can become more aware of the energy around me.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely part of the answer. And the part that I'm going to add is how I hope to help people like you do that. So I'm just going to pause and think as like I'm turning a page to the next chapter, my transition. And what I know is I just do the same thing. It will show up for me. I don't have to make this stuff up. My body is pretty fluent in this. I just source it from this movement in my body. So then this course ends, or the meditation ends, the session ends, or the meditation ends, and we go up and we do things. And I drop a cup on the floor and I go, God, I'm such an idiot. Or my wife tells me that's my fault, or I should have been more careful, or whatever it is. Not that my wife would do that, but there's this other experience of life where it doesn't feel like an impersonal flow. It feels like me. There's a me quality to my body and experience where it doesn't feel like this impersonal will of just the flow of energy, where it feels like me, my problems, my pain, my hopes and joys. And so we can start to notice that there's two different worlds that we live in. And in Christianity, they have a great way of describing this. They would say, or I don't know if Christianity is strict, but they would say, my will and God's will. They would differentiate. They would say, so I'm in my will, or this is my will. God has given me free choice. It means there's this level of focus on my experience, which feels very real to me, where I am separate. I have my own will, I have my own choices, all the pressure is on me. And what we're discovering is there's this other flow of experience where no one's doing it. There's no one who is having thoughts or having feelings or having sensations, and you could call that God's will. And in Christianity, they would say, you surrender your will to God's will so that you could do good in the world. That would be the concept. And I'm not teaching you Christianity, but it's a great way of understanding, using that language to understand our experience. So as I sit here and I relax into this flow, it's very hard to imagine that the next thing that happens is wrong. It's very, very hard to do that. The awareness doesn't say it's wrong. This flow that is energy, as we start to relax into the experience of energy, it starts to feel right. There's a trueness to this experience of energy. It feels intelligent. And no matter where it goes and what comes up next, I can start to trust it, like people would trust God, so to speak. And when I contract or I focus more on myself, it inherently feels less that way. For me, there's less of a certainty that it's intelligent and that I know what I'm doing, that it comes from a sort of omnipotent or powerful force. But nevertheless, it happens all the time. So the solution is not to get rid of this. The solution is to allow our will to move so much that it feels like this effortless flow. The solution is to expose our body, all our desires and thoughts and feelings, all our pains, to awareness so that they can be accepted and so that they can move. And they will move more. And the more that they move, the less they feel like they come from separation, the less they feel like there is a separate person who is doing things. They just feel like everything else, like the wind through the trees, like the sound of my voice, my thoughts, my feelings. I blink. It's all just one movement. So part of what we're doing is we're looking to close the gap between our felt sense of ourself and of consciousness. We want our personal will to kind of dissolve, you could say, or relax into, express itself into this natural force. And then the gap between me and life diminishes, closes, until I feel the same, in the sense of being separate from the movement of life is continually diminished, continually relaxes. And of course, inherently, that feels really wonderful. That's a lovely experience. And it has tremendous impact on how we relate to other people. And we'll look more at this. It also has tremendous impact on what we create in our life, how we spend our time, what's really significant to us personally, and what we live for. Because as my personal experience starts to relax into this effortless flow, more and more I become an expression of, a vehicle for this effortless flow. And my life orientation continually is more in line with what this energy is trying to do. And I hope that today we will actually have some time, we will have lots of time, tons of time, to experience what I mean when I say that this energy wants to go somewhere, that it's intelligent, that it has a direction, that it wants good for us. We're going to spend a lot of time experiencing that. But again, I just pause and see if anyone has any questions or comments. So why does my body not feel like that? That's the question. Why do we have to get into this position where we have to learn about letting our energy move? Why does our body feel separate? Now, for most of my life and in the world currently, it was just taken as an assumption that this is just what's real. This is just the way it is. We're just all separate from each other. We feel that way. This is what's true. And then we come up with a whole way of living based on that felt sense. Our world is constructed out of that assumption, which we all feel. We all feel separate, and then we do things that express that separateness. Why? And it's very important that we understand what trauma is and the effect that it has, how trauma functions holistically. So trauma, as a great definition for trauma, is any experience that's overwhelming. Another way of saying that is any movement of energy which we can't tolerate. And the world, being born into the world as it is, being a human being, is the inevitable experience of having overwhelming experiences continually through your life. That's what it is to be a human being. It's to be traumatized. It's to have experiences that you can't tolerate. So if awareness can't stop energy from moving and the movement is overwhelming, what can we do? How is this intelligent being expressing this goodness? How is it going to manage and deal with that experience? Well, it has to stop the movement from happening. We have to stop feeling it. And we have to, I'm feeling very careful of my words because the last time I tried to explain this, but we have to freeze the movement from happening and we have to go away from it. We have to stop the movement from happening and we have to go away from it. You could say we have to hide it from awareness. We have to hide it from ourselves. We have to forget about it. We have to go away from it. And when we go away from it, it stops moving. So if I have a feeling when I'm 8 years old of feeling sad and I can't tolerate it, that movement of energy, which is sadness passing through awareness, stops moving. And it becomes a frozen energy. It becomes a kind of a structure. That's what trauma is. And so when we experience trauma over the course of our lives, we build up this kind of residue or substance or structure of energy or experience which isn't moving. That's the past. We are holding the past in our body because we couldn't let experience just move through. So we're left with all of the movements which we couldn't tolerate. So my experience is when we say that the world is a physical object, that's our primary level of experiencing as human species, that we're physical, that we're separate from each other, that this is me and this is you and this is what is true. What this means is, as a world, all of us have had to freeze and go away from a tremendous amount of our experience, and this is what we've been left with. We've been left with a very small fraction of ourselves, which is moving. And the rest actually we can't feel because it's kind of hidden from us. And what it leaves us with is a sense of feeling separate from others. And it leaves us with our own will, so to speak. It means that my birth and my life no longer feels like a continuation of the same impulse that created the universe. Somehow the universe has created nature and all of this beautiful consciousness, and I somehow am separate from all of that. And the reason is because my body and my energy, personal experience has stopped moving, and it doesn't feel like everything else anymore. It feels separate from that. This is, in my experience, what creates the confusion about reality and consciousness. This is also what causes all our problems in relationship. This is what causes all our problems when we go to seek to express our potential. And globally, this is why the world is the way it is. This is why, for thousands of years, the world has been a violent, challenging place, because there is trauma, and we are operating out of this traumatized state in which we perceive ourselves as separate from each other. So this impacts this experience that we've all had of growing up on this planet, of being here, has impacted our sense of self. It's impacted our relationships, and it's impacted what we see as possible for ourselves and what we spend our time doing, our purpose, our commitment to life, the way that we use the gifts that we come with. And the problem and the solution are very close together. The solution, I can say very easily, is just to start to let more of this energy, which is not moving, move. That's the solution. Everything in me that's not moving is going to have to move. And if it was overwhelming in the past, that means that it's going to feel challenging to stay with in the present. I'm going to have to move towards, consciously move towards, and find even the parts of myself which I couldn't tolerate in the past, which I'm no longer aware of. Now, if you relax into awareness, a lot of these might just come to you. This relaxation actually will surface experiences like that. As you described of your weekend, there's lots of ways in which the past will surface. We can have it surface in many ways. We can have it surface when we get married, when we have kids, when life is constantly poking us in these places. You could say we are running into the frozen parts of ourselves all the time. So by shifting my focus to energy, what I start to can allow, and we'll transition to this, I can allow the past to move, and then I'm not holding it anymore, and then I don't feel frozen. My will or my sense of self is no longer a product of the past. It becomes online. It's moment by moment. And I can express more and more of my potential. So we're going to transition away from me talking and towards us exploring this deeper. So I just start with whatever feels important from the two of you now. What catches your attention?
It sounds amazing and great, and it makes sense. I just kind of feel like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I
So,
want to get rid of it.
yeah, just see, does awareness want to get rid of it?
I think awareness just wants to get things moving.
Great. Let's start with that. We want to get things moving. I want to get things moving too.
Yeah.
Again, that's what life is. If it's not moving, it's not really living. It's in a sort of state of perpetual, repetitive, not livingness. So we want to live. We want things to moving. I'm with you on that. That's why we're here. So what I'm inviting you to do is start to talk about some of the things in your life which you would like to have move. And we're going to start to look at how we can do that together. We're going to actually do that, which means for you, you're sharing parts of your life which are really sensitive. And I'll be really conscientious of how slowly we go in this, but it's up to you. And just see what you want to share, what you want to look at in your life.
Okay, great.
Do I follow you? You go first.
Okay. I spoke briefly about the father of my 5-year-old daughter, Sahara. We had a very toxic relationship. We've been separated now for 4 years and quite separate, and he's a narcissist, which is quite a difficult person to be co-parenting with. Well, I actually call it parallel parenting, which was what I've had to do with him, because I have to keep quite a lot of my personal stuff separate, so he can't kind of reach me or be as accessible to me. We haven't been managing to do it pretty well, but I have been noticing that I haven't loved or trusted anyone, brought anyone into my life since then. I've noticed that if I do go on a date, I cannot be sober. I need to have some, like a drink or something, or I can't. And I think a lot of it is trust. There was a lot of manipulation, controlling, gaslighting. He was very intelligent, which an intelligent narcissist is quite dangerous. There was a lot of games, and I guess he had a bit of celebrity status as well. So he had the finances to love bomb me and do a lot of grand things, which I guess confused me and kept me off track from what was actually happening.
Can I pause you there for now?
Sure.
That's a lot. Let me
Yeah.
just start by saying, when you say that story, when you tell us about this part of your life, how do you feel? What do you notice in your body?
I was noticing it yesterday. It's kind of in my solar plexus, like in between my breasts, but quite deep, and it's a lot tightening. But it's a story. It's a story that I've told before, and I can tell, but it's still, I can't separate it from myself.
Absolutely, and that's why we're here. No one brings me things that they've already checked off their list that are perfect and pretty. You're here to bring me the things that you don't quite understand yet. And so we're going to look at this together. Lots of time. So the first thing that we can do, we take a first pass at it, is we just feel what you describe in your body. You just notice how it feels emotionally and physically. And for me, the gesture that I would make when you speak is like, I shut down.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do this. So we can start by sourcing awareness, because awareness is not going to resist you shutting down. Wherever you feel this in your body, you just notice there must be awareness. Otherwise, you wouldn't be feeling it.
Mm.
And as we feel it, at the same time, we relax our focus into the experience of being aware. The same time that they're having this experience, there's the space of awareness that's calm, open, just sees things as they are. And we just take some moments to see what happens next.
I do feel a sadness for myself.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And the most important thing for us to notice is this sadness wants to move. And we want this experience in your life to change. And right now, what we can do is we can relax into awareness and just let the sadness move. Its energy is finally moving. And if we can tolerate the feeling, we just let it be a relief. And I noticed that it moves kind of like a wave, the energy. There's a rise of emotional energy. As you relax, it can move. And then we're here again without that same intensity. It's different now. You've changed. You haven't been here before. And so we look again. What do you notice now?
Sadness for him. And I think with my awareness and as an empath, I was very aware of what he had been through as a child and his trauma. And I think I started becoming aware of it last night. It was almost as if, not it was an excuse, but I almost let him get away with a lot more because I was empathetic to and understanding to his trauma and what he had been through, and maybe didn't make him as accountable, or he was excused. It's like, okay, well, I know where this is coming from. I know he's reacting because of what he has been through.
Right. And again, I love that we're here, that you're sharing all this. And what I do is I listen to the words that you're saying, and I just feel what's happening for me. And one thing that happens for me is you say you are empathetic for him. And it
Yes.
kind of catches my curiosity. As we feel our bodies, my question is, what do you mean more specifically when you say you are empathetic for him?
Just his story, how he had been abandoned and separated from his mother at an early age, in and out of foster care, father in and out of jail, growing up in a very tough, angry, neighborhood in East London where everyone was kind of against him. It was very much survival, and I think maybe part of why I have kept it is that attachment to his story and wanting to protect him. There was a lot of protecting that I was doing for him and his behavior.
Right. So we get to do something different right now. And the way it's really actually quite simple. We just feel his story. Just feel it and just notice what happens in your body.
It's his story. I kind of felt a bit of a divide.
And if you can just let yourself feel his story, you don't have to stop it and attach to it, because it's a lot, right? If you're empathetic, it's a lot to feel pain or to acknowledge that.
Mm.
But as we can learn to relax, again, it's his story, meaning it's not, you're not holding on to it right now. You're just feeling it. And we just take a pause to notice his story, your story, all of this can move through you. It's energy. And you're not holding on to it if you're relaxing into awareness. You were less attached to it than you were when we started. At least that's how it feels for me. And in theory, hypothetically, if you were to talk to him now, you would be speaking from less of the past than you would be now. If you were to relate to him, less of the past that you are not allowing yourself to feel, or that's overwhelming, is driving your behavior, driving your relationship. It's more really about what's happening now, because there's less holding on to the past, feelings that you had, experiences that you're relating to in him. So the hope would be that this would actually change your relationship to him, right? That it becomes more updated. But I stay with you here. We still have lots of time. We can take this further for all of our learning. But I just see, what are you noticing now?
I feel lighter in my chest. I guess there were things that's happened that this morning that I haven't really seen or been aware of what I was holding on to with him. And part of that protecting. I guess I still, because he doesn't have any family in Australia, there is still part of me that is protective of him.
Yeah.
Even though he's done a lot of terrible things to me, I still protect him. And I think that was part in the relationship too. We would be going through horrible, toxic fights. And then a family member would come and I would have to pretend everything was okay. And I would not want to throw him under the bus because I felt like he had no one else to protect him, to really care or love him.
Right. And we just feel that.
Yeah.
And not as a way of getting away from it, actually as a way of creating more space for what we're feeling. We just notice how much space there is in awareness. This is an invitation for more movement, as you said. Awareness wants movement. By relaxing into awareness, there's more movement, more letting go.
Wow. Thank you.
And isn't this wonderful? We've talked about something that's really difficult in your life, and the product of that is relaxation, movement, more life energy. We haven't become more hardened. We're not thinking about solutions, what we're going to say to him or how we could do it differently. We're just allowing things to move, and this is the change. And we can start to feel implicitly, for me, it feels like, oh, wow, this is the right direction. My body is signaling to me that this is taking me in the right direction.
Yes.
Earlier, I said, this flow always goes in the right direction. How do we know? Well, we start to feel the flow, and it feels like this is going in the right direction. And then we learn to trust it more and relax into it more. But as we're sitting here in this place where we're not overwhelmed, I just see if there's anything else you're curious about, if anything else that you notice in yourself that you want to speak about.
This is a different relationship with my father.
Just want to pause. Of course, that's the next thing. Carry on.
As I spoke to you guys earlier about, he hasn't been in our lives for about coming up to 5 years. He's detached himself from all of his family, both in New Zealand and for my siblings here in Australia. He has remarried. That was back in '93, so he's been remarried for a long time. She is also a narcissist. And the interesting thing was, from being with Sahara's dad and being with a narcissist for the first time, as horrible as that was, I, for the first time, was able to understand what my father was involved in and what he was experiencing. But unfortunately, I said to myself, fortunately, I was able to remove myself from that relationship, but he is still in that relationship and situation.
We just pause and feel. You can carry on, but we just want to check in with our body and let the next things that we say be directed in part on what you're feeling and what's moving or what wants to move.
There is a lot of sadness and rejection from the feeling of him, I guess, from the feeling I feel that he didn't choose us. He didn't choose to be in our lives.
I just pause and I make space for this feeling. Again, as we feel it, there's awareness. And we just see, how does awareness feel about this? How does it treat you in your body when you feel this way?
Protected. I'm just feeling that it's okay.
It's beautiful.
I guess just finding, I've had a few years now without him in our lives, and I have done a lot of work with forgiveness, and I think just finding out that news last week that he is still alive, because we didn't even know if he was alive or not, has the feelings of, I guess, rejection have resurfaced.
Yeah.
And I think I tried to deal with that a lot in my forgiveness and let a lot of that go. But now I know he's here. I guess it's like, well, I know now he's still choosing not to reach out. Sadness.
And we just do what awareness does. We make space. We relax into it. We allow it to move. And in our group today, we're going to continue to talk about the principles, but it's important that this moves enough for us to feel somewhat complete for now. We'll just know because our bodies will tell us when they feel complete.
sadness coming up.
And again, I just follow your movement. It's moving, and I just stay here with you.
Can I just ask, with the awareness, when I'm being aware of this happening and aware of my feelings, am I moving the feelings? Do I move them, or do I sit with them?
Well, the first thing that's really important to notice is that you and I are relating, and Laura, and that's what feelings are for. Feelings are actually not just for you, they're for me to know too. And so part of moving feelings or energy is actually just sharing or relating or expressing.
Mm.
One of the challenges that we have when we're by ourselves is we don't have anyone necessarily to express to. And that limits the amount of movement there can be in one way. We're not fully utilizing feelings as their emotion as it's supposed to be used.
Mm.
And if you and I go on a journey that's together in some ways, we will definitely look at relating and all of that there is there. But for now, the important thing to focus on is that awareness is not trying to get this to end. It doesn't say that's enough. This is just the beginning. And from here, we get to do all kinds of stuff also. We get to move in all kinds of ways. We can call a friend. We can choose to work together. We can meditate more. We can travel the world. Who knows what your body's going to want to do? The most important thing is whatever that is, we're sourcing that intelligence from what wants to move. It's not a strategy. You'll feel it. You'll know.
Mm.
And awareness makes that possible because it's like the perfect parent, that always supportive, always there, always yields, and yet it's bigger than your feelings. It's perfect.
Thank you.
This is a foundation. It goes a lot further than this. And I'm just going to share some things that stand out to me. Is your story inevitably starts to progress chronologically. Very important for me. We start with how this experience is something that happened recently in your life with an adult relationship that you're holding on to. And inevitably, and very importantly, we start to move towards how did you get into that relationship in the first place? Why were you doing that? How did you match up in that perfect way? Well, we'll notice in all of ourselves that we can track these patterns and these experiences, these ways of being throughout our life, that they often will begin or be resonate with early experience we have in our developmental process. And so as we want our adult life to change, of course, and our adult relationships to change, we will naturally, as you do, as wave after wave comes, we'll start to move early and earlier in our life towards when we first started to experience being overwhelmed by freezing in the face of other people's pain. The story of you being an empath, of being able to feel others and feel yourself. The story has many layers and years, and we're naturally, your body will just start to tell us more and more. It will just start to release more and more. And the more that moves, and from an earlier age, the less you will keep repeating those patterns. the more your future can look something like different than the traumatic experiences of your childhood re-upped, replayed over and over again. That's what we want. We want our future to look different than the most painful experiences and our coping strategies from those when we were young. But my view of the world is that we are not currently harnessing that transformational capacity, and we are repeating things. We repeat them in our personal life, we repeat them in our relationships, we repeat them in our world. And if we stay at the cognitive level, we try to create solutions without undoing, we don't undo the problems. But in this time here today, we've gone a long way in starting to move and undo the way that you see yourself, the way that you hold your body, the way that you relate to other people's, and your experience of consciousness, all at the same time. So your sense of what is real and true is changing, your relationships are changing, and what's possible for you in your life are changing. It's all the same thing to me. And so we are really doing three things at the same time. We're meditating, we're relating, and we're expressing. We're meditating or looking into what is true, or relating to our own body and connecting with ourselves, and we're expressing that and sharing it with other people, all at the same time. So is this therapy? Is it meditation? Is it some sort of manifestation? It's all of those things. That's what consciousness is. It's as human consciousness, all of those things at the same time. And rather than choosing one of those things and hoping that it's going to impact all of them, we can learn to live the full experience and do all of those things at the same time. And again, we just sit back into what is really true about this moment. I am aware, and everything is passing through my awareness. That's the activity. That's what we're doing. We're being aware, and all of what we're aware of is passing through. That's what our relating is. That's what our relationship with ourself is. That's what creating or expressing our potential in the world is. It's all the same thing. And the secret to a good life is quite simple. It's just for as much energy to move as possible. Everything that is negative is energy that's not moving. Everything that is positive is energy that is moving. So all of us are in this together. We are all going to find more energy in us that's not moving than we would like. There's lots. And the solution is just to continue to let it move, watch our life improve, relationships improve, sense of self transform. And more, what we start to recognize is what's true about life is it's made out of energy, and this energy is in our awareness. And that experience can be available to everyone. We do it through doing ordinary things like talking about our relationships. Okay, so we have more time left, and I just see, again, what catches your attention, what feels important, what do you understand or not understand?
I just feel very excited and very happy. Well, you make it sound easy. I know there would be a lot of work involved, but I'm ready to get things moving.
And we just start. Does awareness say it's hard?
No.
Okay, we're going to need that because it is hard. So on one hand, it's not. Things just move. There's perpetual relaxation, no big problem. Experientially, it will get challenging.
Yes.
And that's why we need that quality. Another way of saying that is awareness can't experience challenges without you.
Mm.
Everything has its place. And you and I can talk about what being ready and moving forward looks like. We can have that discussion. But today, just Laura as well, what stands out to you?
Grateful to be together and appreciating your willingness to share and your courage. And feeling the freedom of, again, just that sense of like so much elbow room. Like we just make space for together. We just made that space, and now there feels like there's more room to breathe.
Absolutely. And it's true that if you hadn't shared in the way you did, this would be less full of life. It really comes to life when people like you share things that really matter. So we can take this concept and this idea and this strategy and actually feel it work and move. That's what brings it to life. And I'm really grateful. The last thing that I want to say is my hope is that this is what we're doing is what ordinary life will be like for human beings. When I was growing up, awakening or transformation was something that people in satin robes did in mountains far away, and it was not relevant to my life at all. I didn't see or understand how it related to what I wanted. But now from here, I can't imagine getting what I wanted without understanding consciousness. It would be impossible. It would be impossible to have a good life without having consciousness. And because I was sort of blessed from being from a very challenging line historically of human beings, I wouldn't have a good life if I didn't understand consciousness. I would have a miserable life. So I had to learn how to do this. But ultimately, if you look very deeply, I would suggest that we all probably need to learn how to do this. And we don't need to leave the world to do it. That's what's so exciting. We get to just do the normal things we do, like relating to our parallel parents and finding out that our dad is somewhere. We just do ordinary human things. There's no special practice. It's just being a human being. And the more that we do this in this way, I believe the more that will just be accessible for everybody. And it'll be obvious that this is what life is. And we'll really start to do it. And then we don't have to repeat the problems and get trapped in the way that we see all over the world. So I am a movement of energy that's speaking to you as body. I am a movement of energy, and I want everything to move. That's why I'm moving. I'm moving in support of everything moving. So thank you for participating.